Hello, everyone. This is another episode. Hello, everyone. This is another episode. Another episode. Listen to another episode of Let's Talk Sports with Tim McKain, where I have the special pleasure of interviewing very special guests. Good evening. Good evening. You're listening to the Sports Cycle. You're listening to Believe in HBCUs. I believe. Hello, everyone. You listen to another episode of Let's Talk Sports with Tim McKain, and I am here with Micheal, the gentleman Gillmore. 6-3 as a professional. You have a 3-win fight streak. How does it feel to do something that you've been dreaming about since you were a kid?
It's actually it's strange because football was actually my first passion, and I just kind of fell into MMA. I had a background in wrestling, but I went on to play college football, and that ended my senior year with an injury. I was having a pretty good year, and I was recovering and saw an MMA event, actually a WEC event, really close. Ended up going to that and falling in love with the sport. Asked some people around me what gym would be best to go to just to start out. Ended up at the gym I'm at now in Lansing, Murcielago MMA. Uh, when I first started with them, it was a pretty obscure location. It's pretty crazy because the GPS coordinates don't really get you there. You end up at a weird warehouse. There's no signage, doorbell, anything like that. I sat and waited. Finally, somebody showed up and they had to throw a rock at like an awning or something to get somebody's attention to let us in. So it was just a place where a bunch of misfits ended up and would grind. No, nothing new in there. Everything was or is old, and all the blood sweat from all of the original fighters there still was on those mats and in the walls. And so that's kind of how I fell into it. My original goal was just to be a pro athlete, being a football player my whole life. I started at 7, and that's most kids who start in sports want to become professional at that particular sport. At some point in life, they realize either it's not going to happen or it might happen to some. But I was close, and it was weird to feel close, but kind of fail because of an injury. And so I found MMA to be something to realize that dream of being a pro athlete. And really, it was nothing more than that. And as time has gone, I've just fallen in love with the sport, and I watch it and I break it down just the same as if I was breaking down football for games. Break down my opponents that I'm fighting, my teammates' opponents, game plan. I love everything about it. And so I'm thankful that I fell into it.
So, do you think and you also were a track star too, correct?
I did get a track scholarship. That's correct. Yeah. I did the triple jump so I'm originally from Arizona, came to Michigan for college. And in Arizona, we do have an event called the triple jump. But I only did track. Everything in high school and leading up was all geared towards football. So I wanted to get a little bit faster. And I wasn't the fastest, but I ran good routes. I had great hands. But I wanted to try to build a little bit of speed to help with scholarship opportunities. And I got bored at track meets just running. And so I tried to do some other events, and I ended up being pretty decent at triple jump. I got, I won a region, I set a school record, and I took second place at state my senior year. And the school that I went to in Michigan ended up giving me a dual scholarship, one for football, one for track. And so track star, I don't know about, but I did pretty well. I placed for a team every year that I did it in the triple jump and scored several points. So just something, again, everything geared towards football. But it certainly has helped athletically as I've moved forward in MMA.
That's what my question was going to be like. How did track and also football transition for you to be a 6-3 professional in mixed martial arts?
Yeah, it just made me versatile. and it made me probably embrace the grind and the sacrifice. So a lot of people see college athletics, and I was in Division II, so it was not what you see at the big D1 schools, but it was an NCAA Division II school, well known for its academics. So there was a lot of emphasis by our coaches put on the education portion of it. But so we're required to sit in the first two rows. If a coach came in class and you weren't there, you had morning runs. The doing two sports, even at that level, is very complicated. It takes both coaches, or both head coaches, to kind of coordinate and communicate and be accepting of that, which both were, thankfully. But neither of them allowed any slack in my duties for the team. So where it really came difficult is the springtime. So we'd have spring practice for football, and that includes spring film and everything, morning runs. And then I would also have track practice. And the same is true in college track as it was in high school. I got bored. I didn't just want to triple jump, so I did the decathlon. And it wasn't anything that I was super great at. All of the events, hurdles was terrible. But it did require me to practice a lot of events. So I would get up and run in the morning for football with the team. I would then go practice an event or two with a coach or on my own, go to class, eat, football practice, go to track practice in my football pants, still from track practice, and all while still trying to figure out how to go to school. So all of those things prepared me for being a professional level athlete, and right now still carrying a full-time job. So the sacrifice that prepared me for, I don't know how else you get prepared for something like this other than doing it.
Exactly, exactly. What position did you play in football, by the way?
I was recruited as a running back, but I was moved out to receiver shortly after showing up.
Okay, okay. So who were some of the running backs that you grew up watching, that you idolized, that you wanted to be like?
Emmett Smith. I grew up with a family full of Cowboys fans. I still have my very first Emmitt Smith jersey.
Wow.
Um, that was somebody I really looked up to, and really, I mean, for my family, when it comes to football, it's your team. We don't uh, like guys on other teams. If you leave the Cowboys, we're not fans of you anymore. It's one of those things when it comes to football. So I didn't really pay attention or like any other running backs. As I got older, I learned to, or I guess, be able to enjoy the performance of another athlete when it comes to football. But that's a difficult thing. Oh, okay, good. So Zeke, and then Dak's injury, and that's
Gosh, bro. I almost cried. I almost cried because it was just like he bet on himself, just like you guys. Just explain what it's like to just be in an octagon with another person. No one else, a fan can experience. I mean, you put in the hard work. You're putting in hours upon hours, and then also you're working a regular job too. Explain to anyone who will listen to this, like what is that like as a fighter, putting your body on the line, working a regular job, just trying to make your dreams come true.
so. When it comes to being in the octagon, I think every fighter is different in what they'll tell you. But I would argue that the vast majority of us feel um, some form of fear. I mean, it's really weird knowing the entire day that you're about to get into a fist fight. No matter how prepared you are, how good the camp's gone, you have an entire day to think about, I'm getting into a fight. It's not an impromptu fight where your instincts take over. Like you have that time to think about it, and each person processes it differently. A lot of times I'm, thinking I've got a good job, I've got a master's degree. Why am I doing this? What do I need to prove? Which really is nothing. It's just something I'm choose to doing it. And so during that time, it really forces you to think about the why. Why are you doing it? And for me, I've never hated or disliked any of my opponents. To me, it truly is a sport. Um, that's not to say that at some point along this journey that somebody's not going to get under my skin, but it generally to me it's a competition. I haven't hated anybody so far that I fought. In fact, two teammates of mine, one's no longer fighting, but two of them are former opponents of mine from the amateur level. So the way that it feels when you're in there, though, compared to any other sport, there is no comparison. Wrestling, I would say, would be the closest, and you have boxing as well, other combat sports, but it doesn't compare to football. It doesn't compare to track, in the sense that the vulnerability that you have when you're in there. Nobody sees the hours that you put into it, the mornings that you get up early, the time that you're away from your family, the times that you're not sleeping, the diets that you're on, the meals that you're missing. Nobody sees that. They see you in there for anywhere from 30 seconds to 15 minutes to 25 minutes in any title fight. And that's what you're judged on. And the high is amazing. I mean, I see pictures of myself after a win, especially a knockout. I don't even know who that guy is. Like that moment, it's almost like you're outside of your skin. And just looking at the pictures that I'm like, who is that guy? And when you lose, it's terrible. Your family and friends, nobody will turn their back on you. Your teammates won't turn their back on you, but you feel like you've let people down, your supporters down. I'm never, I'm humbled every single time somebody buys a ticket from me, every single time somebody, buys a walkout shirt from me. It's crazy to me that people take the time out of their day to do that. And there's no other sport that I've done that can match that feeling, which is why I think the highs are so high and the lows are so low, when you're in the cage and everything leading up to it.
Wow, that's incredible, man. That just makes me think. I gotta take a minute to just grasp everything that you just said. But explain why, and I already can tell by just the way you talk and just how you carry yourself. But why the gentleman as a nickname?
Okay. I didn't want a nickname, actually. So it was my third or fourth amateur fight. So the previous company that I worked for required me to wear a suit anytime we were at our home office or out of the office, dealing with our customers. I work for an insurance company. And if you're in the office, you didn't have to wear a full suit, but you still had shirt and tie on. So that's how I would show up to practice. And in my first fight, I think I ended the first round, my very first amateur fight. I ended the first round in the top position, landing ground and pound. And when the horn sounded, I helped my opponent up from the ground. And it wasn't anything I thought about. It was instinctual. My dad from youth football always told me, you play from whistle to whistle. I would work to take your head off from whistle to whistle. But if you tackled me and the play's over, my dad always taught me to help him up. And it's something that carried with me mostly through college as well. I mean, there was time you run somebody over and you keep going, and that's just part of it. But if there was a situation where I ended up, in a position I was on top of an opponent, teammate, whoever it was, yeah, I helped them up. So that was a little bit instinctual for me to do that, even in the cage. And one of my coaches, it was my third fight. When you're filling out all of the waivers and all that, they ask you your background and stuff, so the announcer can say it. And without my knowledge, one of my coaches at the time took the card and then put the gentleman on there, because he kept calling me that. And I was like, I don't want a nickname. I don't want anything. I just want to be myself and get out there. And then he said it. The announcer said it, and it stuck.
Yes, sir. Yes, sir. Yes, sir. So you have a fight coming up October the 30th. Okay.
I do. Yep.
See Fight Pass. Who are you fighting, and what are your expectations for the fight?
I'm fighting Greg Sizemore. We've been on similar cards before. I've seen him fight before. He's fought at pretty high weights, I believe even heavyweight, if I'm not mistaken, maybe as an amateur. And he's been slowly working his way down to 170. I don't think he's ever made 170. And in fact, my last fight, I stepped in on short notice because he backed out for some reason. I don't know if it's a weight cut or an injury. I know, I didn't really care to look into it. And he comes to fight, so I don't think it was anything other than one of those two things. Had to be a weight cut or an injury. His record isn't the greatest, but to me, those are sometimes the more dangerous people that don't have a lot to lose. And I'm on a 3-fight win streak. I started my career as a pro, win one, lose one, win one, lose one. And it's a game of inches. One of my losses, I knocked the guy down. I'm just pretty sure he was out. May have woke up. I fell right into a triangle. One of my losses, I demolished the dude the first round. Turns out I broke his jaw. Saw him at the hospital. And it was a short notice fight. Lesson learned with that. And I gassed, and he, caught me in an anaconda, I believe. And I had to tap. And so it was kind of hard going back and forth 1-1 like that. So now that I'm on a win streak, I do have something to lose, and he really doesn't. So that makes him a dangerous fighter. And again, I won't say anything bad about my opponents. I don't want to get into that mind game. It's not something that fuels me. I don't care what or if he says anything. I don't pay attention to it. I don't post anything about it. It just only recently have I started trying to post stuff on social media anyways. That's how you get the exposure, how you get potential sponsorships. And so even before that, I was just being myself, few hundred followers, not posting anything, fighting and working. And that's about it.
Sir. So actually, I was at a fight event, Ultimate Battlegrounds 4. It was hosted by Derek Brunson. And one of the fighters that I knew, his opponent, so he fought at 155, and then 145. For this fight, he had to gain 10 pounds for 155, and the fighter ended up fighting at 162. So
wow.
Yes, and so he was frustrated. He was like, but I'm not quitting. I'm going to fight him at 162. My question to you is, like, what weight limit would you say, no, I'm not going to fight that? Or would you look at an opponent and say, you know what, because this guy's doing this, I'm going to demolish him? What do you think?
I think that would be situational. So we see in the UFC all the time, and even on local shows, somebody comes in well overweight, and only a little bit of money is taken from them. And at the level that I'm at a local show, especially with COVID, no fans allowed. The pay is really not that much to start. I mean, it costs us money to do this, to put our bodies on the line until you make it to a certain level. And so you have to look at it from a business standpoint. In the UFC, sure, but even those fights, the bigger person, male or female, usually ends up winning, and so that little bit, 20% or whatever it may be, doesn't really hurt the fighter that much. And so, not 1 or 2 pounds over, somebody made an effort to make the cut at this level, I've never had a problem with that. I usually fight as well. But if it's somebody who comes in massively overweight, and it is a fighter that, like Greg, that doesn't have anything to lose, and I've got a win streak at stake, I have to really talk with my coaches and find out, is it a good business move to make for just a little bit of money? And with having a job, I don't need the money. It's wonderful. I've got a wedding coming up, and those don't pay for themselves. So it'll every little bit helps. But I think if it's something where it's like 10 pounds overweight, and it's evident that there was no effort to make the weight, and I had to cut the weight, and I suffered, and that person didn't, it's that, to me, I don't think it'd be worth it. I really don't think that'll be the case. Again, I don't know why he had to back out last time. I think the last time it was even a catch weight at 175. And I think that was his first venture down there. So it may have been the weight cut. But again, I expect professionalism from him, and I'm assuming that that's how it's going to go forward. And we'll see weigh-in day how that plays out.
Yes, sir. Yes, sir. My guy won the fight, by the way. He
Oh,
smoked me.
perfect. Well, sometimes it can work in your favor if the person didn't make weight because they're out of shape.
Yes, sir.
And they didn't put in the work. But if somebody who's putting in the work and getting big and lifting and just coming in like, I'm just not going to worry about the weight, and I'm in shape and we're going to go, then it gets a little bit squirrely at that point on whether or not the business decision is good to make.
Yes, sir. Yes, sir. So, Mike, someone who has a master's degree, someone who's played football at a collegiate level, played track, is a professional mixed martial arts. What are your keys to success?
Um, I would say attitude and willingness to embrace sacrifice, because at every level of those sports, education, MMA, there's always a sacrifice, and that sacrifice is time. And everybody hears the phrase that time is money, right? Um, I'm spending time in a sport, either training or coaching. I do corner a lot of our guys, which is why I was in Abu Dhabi recently. Uh, all of that time is time that I could be spending doing something else, maybe making money another way, instead of in a venture that up to this point has cost me money tenfold. And so you really have to embrace the sacrifice that it's required to even potentially get to an end goal, because nothing's guaranteed. Um, and so just understanding that, I think, helps with the success, and then having realistic goals on what success means to you. So my goals in this sport have been kind of in a step-by-step process, where it was have a fight, then it was be a professional athlete. When I realized that, okay, you have a decent amateur record, people are talking to you about turning pro, I can really do that. And then it was, all right, I had a pro fight, I won, it was great. And then I was like, well, I like the winning. And so and then I lost, and I was like, well, I can't go out on a loss. And so you keep adjusting your goals and what that success means. And that's what's taking me to where I'm at now at 6-3 is I've taken realistic goals or steps towards a goal. And everybody who does this, mostly everybody, I can't say everybody, most everybody wants to get a shot at stepping in the octagon. Some people make it to Bellator, and that's wonderful too. There's a lot of money there. There's a lot of money in one championship. There's a lot of money in various promotions around the world in this sport. But it is the UFC that is the goal for people, at least to start, because that's the biggest platform. That's the NFL, if you will, of this. And so that's always a goal that's always out there as a thought. But I'm taking each individual step as they come and reassessing the goals as I move forward. So that way, it doesn't seem too big or for me to where it's not worth the effort.
Yes, sir. Absolutely. Absolutely. So thank you very much, Mike. Everybody listening, Mike, he's got a October 30th fight. It's gonna be at UFC Fight Pass.
That's correct. Yep.
Where can people watch it online?
You download the UFC Fight Pass app. If you haven't already had a subscription, I think you might get a week free. So utilize that if you can. October 30th is a Friday. The very next day is Halloween and a big UFC show. I think their early Fight Pass prelims might be on there for the UFC. So a good time to download the app, watch some fights. UFC Fight Pass I have it myself. You have LFA on there, a lot of regional shows where you can see some up and comers like myself, some of my other teammates on there, and tune in. And it should be a pretty good show, not only for my fight, but WXC itself usually hosts some pretty good fights and exciting fights at that.
Yes, sir. Yes, sir. You heard it here first. Download UFC Fight Pass. Michael, the gentleman Gillmore, is going to give a show.
Thank you. I appreciate your time and reaching out to me. Any of your listeners, follow me on Instagram, the gentleman underscore Gillmore, and Gillmore is Gillmore.